Hello, it's Tuesday, 10th of April 2018, coming to you from the center of the biggest gathering place in the world, Toronto, Ontario. We come to you from the Midtown area. We don't come to you live, we come to you tape, but it will go live on social media on the morning of April 10th, 2018. Tuesdays is what we designate for future of technology and social progress. So if you haven't caught on yet, The Ordinary Joe Show will have a daily podcast following a pattern of F-Series. And for Tuesday, our F-Series is about futuristic technology and futuristic society. And today we are not going to talk specifically of a certain topic within the subject, but we are going to talk about the subject instead, as this is our pioneer episode for our Tuesday Future Techs. We are going to discuss why is it important to be always on top of the issue regarding technology, how it's progressing, and how does it affect us, ordinary Janes and ordinary Joe, we humans who walk the face of the earth. Why do we need to know, and why do we need to stay aware what's going on with technology and how it is affecting our jobs, our society, our family, our personal preferences, and our behavior as a society and also as individuals. Futurism is a real thing, and future technology is already at hand. Some of them are already enjoyed by yours truly and you individually who's listening to me right now. Many of you are already enjoying many of the technological advancement that we sometimes take for granted. Every single one of you in your pockets contain one of the most powerful more powerful computer than that was used in the 60s and the 70s to bring astronauts to space, and a lot bigger technology and a lot bigger computing power than the computer they use to send Neil Armstrong and his crew to the moon. So technology is real, technology is here. Things that we haven't thought of or thought that we'll be using only 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Cellular phones that fit in your pocket where you can talk to anybody across the world. Video chat that people thought was only a subject of fiction that we see on Star Wars, Star Trek, all that kind of stuff. We used to dismiss these things as comic book fantasies, but it's here today. And what else is coming down the pipeline? And a lot of things, when I was a little fellow, I really love science fiction. Science fiction is one of my favorites, and both science fiction and science fact. When my father was still alive back in the Philippines, I formed this friendship with one expat to the U.S. He's a Filipino American who came for a year-long vacation to the Philippines. And at that time, I was only around 10, 11, maybe 12 years old. But this expat fellow, he's actually a medical doctor in California, came home to the Philippines to kind of find his roots, find his friends and relatives. And initially, I got hooked to his collection of Popular Science magazine. And he was actually giving me all of he would read, he has so many back issues of the Popular Science and Popular Mechanics magazine that he was giving me all of his late 80s and late 70s and early 80s issue of those favorite magazines. And that's fascinating that I didn't give a lot of value to those at that time, because right now those are collector's items. Well, he wouldn't give me a whole bunch on a pile, but he will just give me one magazine every 3 weeks or so. One of his favorites. So science fiction, technology, popular mechanics, popular science magazine. Those are things that I'm fascinated with, and I've always been fascinated with science fiction. Always been fascinated with science facts. One of the high school that my dad wanted me to go, if I was only diligent at that time to study for the entrance exam, was the Philippine Science High School.
Thank you for staying with us. Please don't go away. In about 30 seconds, we will be back with a continuation on our Tuesday Future Tech and Future Society podcast. A friendly reminder to all our viewers and listeners on our daily podcast. Tomorrow, we shift gears to our Wednesday podcast, and we are going to touch on the topic of food, festivals, and fine wines. That is your Food Festivals and Fine Wine Wednesday podcast, which is a part of our F series on our rotation of topics. That is F4 Wednesdays. F5 Thursdays is about fitness, and Fashion Thursdays. We shift gears again on Friday, and we touch on the topic of films, music, books, and art. That's our F6 Fridays on films, music, books, and art. Invite your friends if this is something that you're interested in. And by Saturday, we make full circle and wind down for the week, and we touch on the topic of faith, family, and kids. We resume the rotation of our F series again on Sunday, starting with F1, which is our flights and destinations, all about staycations and vacations all around Ontario. F2 Mondays is Finance and Entrepreneur Mondays. The last time we had a business leader and a business strategist who came and guest on our show on our F2 Mondays. Then we resume next week again, the same time, on Tuesday, same topic as the day, on our Future Tech podcast. Same subject, but will be a different topic next week. So we'll see you then, and please invite your friends and your family to come and listen to us on our daily podcast, available on iTunes, Spreaker, and SoundCloud for audio. And a video version of our podcast can be viewed for free on Facebook videos and YouTube. Coming soon on Vimeo as well. Thank you for staying with us. We will get back to our Future Tech Tuesday podcast momentarily here on It's Just Another Ordinary Joe Show. Please don't go away.
Welcome back to the Tuesday edition of our Ordinary Joe Show podcast. Tuesday is all about future technology. This is your host, Joseph Salvador, your Ordinary Joe. I don't pretend to be an expert in the subject, but if you haven't caught on yet, the Ordinary Joe narrative and the Ordinary Joe Show principle is that me, your primary host, hopefully there will be more hosts in the future, but me, your primary host and co-host at the same time, is a fellow student of the subjects that we endeavor to learn more on, to find out facts and figures and understanding. So here I am, your fellow Ordinary Joe, fellow student, fellow learner, fellow observer, and fellow participant in this discourse. Future of technology and how it affects the progress and the future of our society. Do you know that there is a direct correlation with the way we behave, the way we conduct ourselves, and how technology, the rollout of technology for consumer consumption, for consumer-based use, is affecting society? There is a direct correlation. A lot of this technology has been around for many decades, but like I said earlier, in the earlier segment before the break, that none of these are new. Many of these have existed and have been developed many years, many decades. But it's a timely rollout. And what it is? What is it? What is it about? Why now? Why in today's society are we now seeing all the rollout of futuristic technology and how it applies to our daily lives, and how does it affect our behavior, our choices, our preferences, the way we raise up our kids, the way we choose things for ourselves? Why now? Why now? So many of latest advancement in technology that we can see everywhere around us are, number one, on the forefront of the list is artificial intelligence. I took a little bit of, I wouldn't say programming, but coding, coding and scripting to understand machine language, how to program computers to behave and to respond to certain stimuli. Prior to that, many years ago, I have background in psychology, developmental psychology, which that was my initial path to pursue as a career for myself when I first attended college back in the Philippines. That was, I thought, to be honest, it's actually like a sort of appeasing my parents. They were telling me, because I took a year off after high school, and they want me to go back to the school system, and to appease my parents, especially my mom, who asked me, you need to be in college, you need to be in university. And my question was, I don't know what to do. I got many interests, but I don't know which one I like more than the other. I want to be a scientist, but the Philippines doesn't support that kind of career with public funding. We don't have that kind of budget. So unless I'm in the USA, I'd probably be more fitting for me to be interested in technology and science and and development and research and development. But back in the Philippines, there's no program for it. Even college programs that don't meet up to spec or up to standard, even back in the 80s. So to appease my parents, I said, okay, I'll go to college, but I don't know what to take. And the closest college from our home has very few selection. And with the selection they have, there's only two that interest me, actually. It's mass communication, which is traditional marketing, traditional broadcasting, television, radio production, and developmental psychology. So I ended up taking both, but I took developmental psychology first and then shifted to mass communication the year after. And developmental psychology really is interesting. I really like it, except for one thing. When I look at all my professors and the whole community of developmental psychologists, they all look kind of depressed. From my perspective, even as a young student, they all look depressed. They all look like people who analyze everything, every single human activity. And I thought to myself, I really didn't want to end up becoming like a paranoid schizophrenic, or I didn't like that kind of. I like the science. I like understanding human behavior, but to be analyzing every single stimuli and response, and every person is different. I didn't want to become one of my professors. I just didn't want to become one of them that are members of that community, ending up being depressed, ending up being neurotic. That's not my cup of tea. But I do love the science behind it. I'm interested in developmental psychology, especially the newborn, how the newborn develop responses to things. And now that I have a 6-year-old who's going to turn 7 in a few months, and leaving my full-time job to be a full-time dad to her for a total of 4 years. A lot of those theory that I was learning from developmental psychology, comparing it to my personal experience, there's a lot of disconnect, but at the same time, I can see the sort of like understanding the wrong theories so that I can apply the right ones in real life. Let's take a break for a second, and then when we come back, we will continue on to this topic. This is your host, Ordinary Joe Joseph Salvador. Please don't go away. When we come back, we are talking about future technology and how it affects the progress of our society. Take care and please don't go away.
Thank you for staying with us. Please don't go away. In about 30 seconds, we will be back with a continuation on our Tuesday Future Tech and Future Society podcast. A friendly reminder to all our viewers and listeners on our daily podcast. Tomorrow, we shift gears to our Wednesday podcast. And we are going to touch on the topic of food, festivals, and fine wines. That is your Food Festivals and Fine Wine Wednesday podcast, which is a part of our F-series on our rotation of topics. That is F4 Wednesdays. F5 Thursdays is about fitness, and Fashion Thursdays. We shift gears again on Friday, and we touch on the topic of films, music, books, and art. That's our F6 Fridays on films, music, books, and art. Invite your friends if this is something that you're interested in. And by Saturday, we make full circle and wind down for the week, and we touch on the topic of faith, family, and kids. We resume the rotation of our F-series again on Sunday, starting with F1, which is our flights and destinations, all about staycations and vacations all around Ontario. F2 Mondays is Finance and Entrepreneur Mondays. The last time we had a business leader and a business strategist who came and guest on our show on our F2 Mondays. Then we resume next week again, the same time, on Tuesday, same topic as the day, on our Future Tech podcast. Same subject, but will be a different topic next week. So we'll see you then, and please invite your friends and your family to come and listen to us on our daily podcast, available on iTunes, Spreaker, and SoundCloud for audio. And a video version of our podcast can be viewed for free on Facebook videos and YouTube. Coming soon on Vimeo as well. Thank you for staying with us. We will get back to our Future Tech Tuesday podcast momentarily here on It's Just Another Ordinary Joe Show. Please don't go away.
Welcome back. Thank you for sticking with us. I have to take back something that I've said earlier, which is partly true, but not entirely true. Insinuated that the Philippines is behind when it comes to technology. And that is partly true, but what I'm not saying as a whole truth is the Philippines is actually advanced in some areas of science, which kind of slipped my mind to mention. When it comes to agriculture, the Philippines have been, and the world has invested, especially the University of the Philippines, Los Baños, where the Rockefellers and Ford created an institution down there in the Philippines to research, especially agricultural stuff back in the 50s and the 60s to fight communism. The Rockefellers and the Fords created an institution called IRRI, that's right. It's called International Rice Research Institute. So nowadays, when you go to your favorite Loblaws and your favorite Metro, I'm not sure what are the popular grocery chain down there in the States. Maybe Walmart is more popular in the States. We have Walmart here too, which has taken over the business space of grocery as well. But if you go down in one of your local grocery, and if you are a rice eater, if your family is a consumer of steamed rice as part of your diet, The best and the most favorite among Asians to cook is what we call white steam rice. Except for many Indians, they prefer their rice to be scented and flavored. But a lot of other Asian uh, cultures, when it comes to food, Japanese, Koreans, Filipinos, Chinese, we love to eat plain steam rice. And among the steam rice, the best one is what we call a jasmine miracle rice. Or in Espanol, it's called milagrosa. Miracle, which is milagrosa is a direct translation in Spanish for the word miracle. So miracle rice was developed in the Philippines back in the 50s. And the history behind this, and this is very on topic on Tuesday's future technology and how and the progress of society, because this is one very good example why we need to pay attention to technology and how it affects our lives directly and indirectly. Because you pay attention to this story and tell me how you think if this template is a standalone, or is it happening even today in other examples of technology. So let me tell you the story. So back in the 50s, the Rockefellers and the Fords created an institute in the Philippines, and they set up a laboratory in UP Los Baños. Los Baños is a countryside. It's a rural area where the University of the Philippines in Manila has a satellite campus. University of the Philippines in Manila, in Quezon City, is one of the biggest universities in Asia. It's actually not biggest, but most advanced in a way, because a lot of other Asians, especially Koreans and Japanese, who want to learn English and to learn how to trade in English, they come to attend that university. And that particular university, which is a state university, has a satellite campus in Los Baños, which is a rural area. And that's University Los Baños, University of the Philippines Los Baños, has a laboratory called International Rice Research Institute, established in the 50s, where miracle rice was created. It's the very first mass-produced, or the very first consumer-grade genetic engineering lab. And Miracle Rice is the very first consumer-grade, mass-produced, genetically modified food that became internationally popular. So you go to your local grocery down there at Metro or Loblaws or Walmart, and you look for the most popular, what they call Calrose rice or jasmine scented rice. You will see the word milagrosa, and which is the Spanish for miracle rice. The mandate for milagrosa or miracle rice, the reason it was developed by the Rockefellers and the Fords, was not for feeding the masses. Yes, that was the secondary purpose, but primarily, and most people don't know this, but if you go to Google and research IRRI, International Research Institute, UP Los Baños, University of the Philippines Los Baños, you will learn right away that the intention for developing this particular strain or germ of rice is to fight communism. The social engineers back in the day understood that communism in many countries, in Cambodia, Vietnam, north of the Philippines, North Korea, the advancement of communism coming from Russia and communist China, uses poverty in their propaganda to win people's hearts and minds. Do you remember that phrase, winning people's hearts and minds? Let me think. Is that the George Bush, little fellow George Bush, the son, the president, who used the term winning hearts and minds when they invaded Baghdad, they invaded Iraq because of the 9/11 attacks, winning hearts and minds. That has been a military science tool ever since the creation of warfare. So, International Rice Research Institute have created, researched, and developed the very first mass-produced genetically modified organism, or GMO, called Miracle Rice, to feed the poor so that they can fight the agenda of the communists. And because the communists would offer, the advancement of communists would always use the narrative of poverty against capitalism. But the capitalists created this so that they can fight back. And some people would think the intention is to feed the poor. I hope so, but because what happened with the Miracle Rice, you can just throw it on the ground and it will be resilient from natural things that hinders growth. So it's called Miracle because it's so dense. When you plant the seed for this rice, you can take a smaller area of a farm area and it will grow very, very densely and very resiliently against pests, against. But now let's step back a little bit. Have you heard of Monsanto and the tyranny that Monsanto has inflicted upon farmers all over the world? North American farmers, British farmers, European farmers, all over the world. They have ownership on many of these genetically modified blueprints for food. How could that be? How could one company, one corporation own a vast number of seedlings patent that we need to grow food for? Why do they own it? And they can actually come and burn a farm that doesn't pay, or a farm that has been cross-germinated by their blueprint. If the farmers are trying to grow organically their produce, but then accidentally, if the wind blew some of those seeds from Monsanto over and there's a cross-germination, and Monsanto find out that they're growing their crop, but it was tainted with some of their genetically modified blueprint, then they can come and sequester the whole farm and burn the whole produce, because the farmer supposed to be growing organically is now using their technology and they didn't get paid for it. This is tyranny. They want to control production of food. So now, can you see what I'm trying to say here? How technology and social progress is interconnected. And this is what we are going to talk about every Tuesday on our Tuesday podcast on our F series.
Thank you for staying with us. Please don't go away. In about 30 seconds, we will be back with a continuation on our Tuesday Future Tech and Future Society podcast. A friendly reminder to all our viewers and listeners on our daily podcast. Tomorrow we shift gears to our Wednesday podcast, and we are going to touch on the topic of food, festivals, and fine wines. That is your Food Festivals and Fine Wine Wednesday podcast, which is a part of our F series on our rotation of topics. That is F4 Wednesdays. F5 Thursdays is about fitness, and Fashion Thursdays. We shift gears again on Friday and we touch on the topic of films, music, books, and art. That's our F6 Fridays on films, music, books, and art. Invite your friends if this is something that you're interested in. And by Saturday, we make full circle and wind down for the week, and we touch on the topic of faith, family, and kids. We resume the rotation of our F series again on Sunday, starting with F1, which is our flights and destinations, all about staycations and vacations all around Ontario. F2 Mondays is Finance and Entrepreneur Mondays. The last time we had a business leader and a business strategist who came and guest on our show on our F2 Mondays. Then we resume next week again, the same time, on Tuesday, same topic as the day, on our Future Tech podcast. Same subject, but will be a different topic next week. So we'll see you then, and please invite your friends and your family to come and listen to us on our daily podcast, available on iTunes, Spreaker, and SoundCloud for audio. And the video version of our podcast can be viewed for free on Facebook videos and YouTube. Coming soon on Vimeo as well. Thank you for staying with us. We will get back to our Future Tech Tuesday podcast momentarily here on It's Just Another Ordinary Joe Show. Please don't go away.
Welcome back to Ordinary Joe Show Tuesday podcast, Future of Technology and Social Progress. This is the topic on Tuesdays. And there's so much to talk about regarding technology and the future of society. Number one, the forefront of this subject is artificial intelligence, or AI. There's also self-driving vehicles that are more common. It used to be science fiction, but now it's more common in our streets. There's a competition between Tesla and Google. And I think Apple is trying to get into the same business space. But we see this as exciting technological advancement, but there's more to it than meets the eye. We have to open our eyes. What are the intentions behind the introduction of this technology? You know, this technology has been around for decades. Even Tesla, Nikola Tesla himself, have found ways to harness energy out of the air. There's so many sources of energy, and we have socially engineered our society to believe that there's a scarcity of energy or electric power. And that way we can charge society for fee when we bring hydro and electricity to their homes. And it's a way of controlling humanity to depend on corporations and governments. But we are not going to go down that rabbit hole today. We are just going to talk about what's happening in the present technological advancement, which is not an advancement that's happening today. It has been around for a while, but it is being rolled out these days. So why now? Why now? What has technological advancement has to do with what we call the universal basic income. So all of these we are going to talk about here on the Tuesday Future of Technology and Social Progress podcast.
For now, we ran out of time for this episode, and we have maximized every single minute of this episode, so we'll have to call it a to be continued for next week. Just to clarify, we are not anti-technology here at the Tech Tuesday podcast. We are not always going to talk about social impact of technology. We're also going to talk about technology itself. So we are going to talk about specific products, specific gadgets, specific technology as well. We are not anti-technology here at our Tuesday Future Tech podcast. We are going to also talk about the good side of technology, but we are going to be very careful how it affects our human behavior and our human experience, and how it relates to our biology and our spirituality as well. So in short, we're not just going to be serious here at Tuesday Future Tech podcast. We'll also have a lot of fun. We are going to talk about so many aspects of especially new discoveries and new technology that is being rolled out, and how exciting it is going to improve our lives, with the caveat of understanding how it should not affect our human behavior. So we'll see you again next week on Tuesday, and please check out all our other podcasts during the week, starting tomorrow, F3, and we'll have that summarized for you just before we say goodbye on this podcast. Hope to see you next week, and take care, everyone. Friendly reminder to all our viewers and listeners on our daily podcast. Tomorrow we shift gears to our Wednesday podcast, and we are going to touch on the topic of food, festivals, and fine wines. That is your Food Festivals and Fine Wine Wednesday podcast, which is a part of our F-series on our rotation of topics. That is F4 Wednesdays. F5 Thursdays is about fitness, and Fashion Thursdays. We shift gears again on Friday, and we touch on the topic of films, music, books, and art. That's our F6 Fridays on films, music, books, and art. Invite your friends if this is something that you're interested in. And by Saturday, we make full circle and wind down for the week, and we touch on the topic of faith, family, and kids. We resume the rotation of our F-series again on Sunday, starting with F1, which is our flights and destinations, all about staycations and vacations all around Ontario. F2 Mondays is Finance and Entrepreneur Mondays. The last time we had a business leader and a business strategist who came and guest on our show on our F2 Mondays. Then we resume next week again, the same time, on Tuesday, same topic as the day, on our Future Tech podcast. Same subject, but will be a different topic next week. So we'll see you then, and please invite your friends and your family to come and listen to us on our daily podcast, available on iTunes, Spreaker, and SoundCloud for audio. And the video version of our podcast can be viewed for free on Facebook videos and YouTube. Coming soon on Vimeo as well.
What's it gonna be when I'm alone in this world? Who will guide me when I'm on my own and it hurts? Who will help me when I've been thrown?
Thank you for listening on the Ordinary Joe Show Tuesday podcast on future technology and how it affects our future society. Please come again next Tuesday for another episode of Future Tech. And on Wednesdays, we are talking about food and festivals. Please tune in to our other podcasts on the show. And thank you very much again for listening. Hope to see you soon. Thank you very much for tuning in to today's podcast. Our conversation about this topic will be continued next week, Tuesday, for another episode of Future Technology and Social Progress Podcast. And this was your host, Joe Salvador, and you are listening to It's Just Another Ordinary Joe Show. On the next episode of Future Tech and Social Progress Podcast, we will be touching on the topic of self-driving cars, the technology, the players, the ethics, the social issues about this technological trend that has not been discussed in the mainstream media. How does this new technology and the philosophy being propagated behind this rollout has a direct effect to individual rights and freedom of mobility? How the masses have been very oblivious on very important underlying issues that has been buried under a pile of hype and propaganda. Please mark your calendars and don't miss out on our next episode of Future Tech. Tuesdays, 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, and 11 a.m. Central Time. Only here at It's Just Another Ordinary Joe Show podcast version. Please mark your calendars and don't miss out on our next episode of Future Tech. Tuesdays, 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, and 11 a.m. Central Time. Audio podcast available on iTunes, Spreaker, and SoundCloud, and can also be viewed in video podcast versions on YouTube, Vimeo, and Facebook page videos. Only here at It's Just Another Ordinary Joe Show podcast version. Please mark your calendars and don't miss out on our next episode of Future Tag. Tuesday, it's 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, and 11 a.m. Central Time. Audio podcast available on iTunes, Spreaker, and SoundCloud, and can also be viewed in video podcast version on YouTube, Vimeo, and Facebook page videos. Only here at It's Just Another Ordinary Joe Show podcast version.